Good afternoon, and welcome to Pay Entry's webinar on preparing for a natural disaster. My name is Kathy Graham. I've spoken with a number of you I see on the attendee names, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Don't we feel like we're already in the middle of a natural disaster with COVID-19, and now we're moving into hurricane season, tornado season. So we want to talk today about preparing for a natural disaster, and we're not talking about a personal preparation, but the preparation that your company should be taking. Businesses and their employees face a number of natural hazards. The list goes on, but we'll talk about flooding, hurricanes and tropical storms, tornadoes and earthquakes, depending on what part of the country you live in. You're faced with a number of different and maybe multiple types of these natural hazards. So business leaders really should be prepared to react according to a written plan when a disaster occurs. There won't be any time to think about it then, and you will have a knee-jerk reaction to something that can be devastating. I know when COVID-19 came out, it came out kind of in phases. We made policies, we made mistakes, we redid the policies, and things are still evolving. But in preparing for a Mother Earth type disaster, um, we need to, get something down in writing so you can just pull it off the shelf and use it. Natural disasters are devastating. Hurricane Harvey cost businesses in Houston up to $25 billion in infrastructure damage and lost productivity. Hurricane Irma destroyed up to 70% of Florida's citrus crop, and that cost small businesses and farmers millions or billions of dollars. The frequency of western U.S. wildfires has increased by 400% since 1970. It has to do with our population expanding and also the longer summers that we have, the hotter summers. And in 2018, more than 58 million wildfires burned 8.8 million acres. That's just beyond you just can't picture that. In 2018, also tornadoes resulted in approximately $672 million worth of damage across the United States. So we're not talking small numbers. We don't have numbers on COVID yet because it's not over, but it probably will be worse than any of this because of the impact that it's had on our economy. And natural disasters also have that effect. We're just going to talk about the U.S. today, but this happens across the world. The wildfires and the devastating earthquakes that they have, tsunamis and things of that nature. So these are things we can't predict. So every business needs a recovery plan. They need a disaster recovery plan. It needs to be written. There are no laws that say you have to do this, but it's a plan that outlines what you would do in the event of a disaster for your company. It assigns specific responsibilities to staff so that someone knows if this happens, then I do that. It also creates a way to communicate with your employees and those around you. And it should include staff training for awareness so that everyone's prepared and it's not just something on the shelf. In assessing your risk for a disaster, you need to decide which disasters are more likely to impact your business. If you live on the West Coast, you know that wildfires are a strong danger there. If you live in Florida or in the Panhandle area, then of Louisiana, Texas, etc., you know that hurricanes are a struggle for you, and sometimes even just severe thunderstorms can do horrible things, tornadoes in those areas. And we in the South and in the Midwest and probably even further out, deal with tornado season, and it's terrifying. So look at the historical events in your area. What has happened in the past, and what do you need to be, or in the communities around you? It may not have occurred in your area yet, but because it occurred 3 towns over, means that you need to be prepared for the same thing to happen to your business. The first step in preparing for a natural disaster and for this plan is to analyze your critical business functions. You need to evaluate, sit down, evaluate, document how your company functions, what the process is of um, moving in from one end of your business to the other. Determine then which processes, employees, equipment, and materials are critical for your daily operations. And you've probably done that now through this COVID-19 pandemic. So you're a step ahead. Critical business functions usually include billing, payroll, and service fulfillment. Production is another critical business function in some companies. List all the functions and determine a process for restoring them in the event of an interruption. And then if it is a natural disaster and your plant or building has been destroyed or damaged, then you may have to locate an alternative place to do business. Before that happens, in this plan, review your site requirements. What do you basically need to get by and for up to a year? Determine an alternate plan for temporary relocation. And today, virtual is the thing to do. A lot of companies have um, gone to home at work. I'm sorry, work at home, backwards, work at home. So that virtual is an environment we more easily can move into now. You can also look for a similar business and share space with them or agree to share space if this ever happens, and a vendor location. When you're looking at a vendor location or a similar business, you're going to need to look at least 50 to 100 miles away. 50 is the minimum because otherwise those companies probably have been impacted in addition to you. Also consider your supply chain and how prepared you are to deal with an interruption of that. Talk to your vendors and suppliers about their recovery plans. Do they have a written disaster plan? Develop relationships with alternate vendors just in case your vendor can no longer deliver the material that you need to do your business. And then research alternative delivery and shipping options. You know, this is one of the things that we had to look at Pay Entry when COVID-19 has occurred, because the UPS and some of the carriers that deliver have different schedules now. They're not as quick to deliver. Amazon's not as quick to deliver now. It has changed a bit in the last month, but it's still not what it was. So we were concerned at the time that if UPS or FedEx shut down, those who still have their paychecks printed would have delay in getting them there. So if you are one of those that has your paychecks delivered, you may want to think about talking more of your employees into direct deposit and or the pay card that we offer, so that that would not happen even in an event like this. So ensure that your employees are prepared for disasters at home. Without employees, the businesses can't function. If someone, if there's been a hurricane, a flood, a tornado, that employee wants to be at home, taking care of their family. So you're going to need to address that, because without employees, a business can't function. You need to help employees prepare for a disaster at home, providing some checklists, some training, like videos, online videos, and basic information about what do you do if your home is damaged, things of that nature. Help them consider their insurance plans and whether or not they have the right coverage or have an expert do that. So just help them be ready for a disaster. Um, ensure that they know their role in the recovery plan, that they have a specific role and that they feel like there is a responsibility there. And then develop and practice crisis communication plans that involve not just the employees, but their families too, because families will matter in a situation like this. Not that they don't anyway, but they will matter even more. Have a process in place for data recovery. Um, this is a big issue, sometimes in smaller companies. If you're IBM or Amazon, you've got things backed up in your own cloud somewhere probably, and you don't consider this a priority. But smaller companies use different systems, back up your data regularly, so that if you do lose today's work, it would only be re-entry of today's work and not 6 months back. Store your data in an off-site, safe and secure location, and consider using the cloud for storage. Verify your ability to actually get to that data, to retrieve it, and to restore it. So make sure that you trust someone else to do it, but make sure that it's really going to be there if you need it. And then outline a plan to replace computer equipment, printers, and all the other office equipment that goes along with doing business, should they be damaged or destroyed. In our chat room, someone asks, will a copy of the slides be available? And I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that up front. Immediately following this presentation, I will email you a PDF version of this so that you can share it with others in your company, those that may be the planners of natural disaster procedures. So thanks for asking that. And another thing is review your insurance coverage regularly, your business insurance. Investing in the right insurance coverage is critical because it does prepare you for a natural disaster, because you would have things like business interruption insurance or loss of use of your facility, would help you to pay your employees during that time, and then some type of extended coverage past into your recovery. So from an office manager perspective or a company owner perspective, the insurance that you have on your company and keeping it current is critical. And then make sure you do what we are supposed to be doing at home. Keep photographs of your property, and that is your building, your assets, your key documents, and your equipment serial numbers, and your policy information should be stored in an off-site location. Safety deposit box at the bank is always a good place to keep things like that. And then you want to create a communication plan. This is probably one of the biggest pieces of it and the most critical, because you want to include your employees, your clients, and your vendors all in this communication plan. And probably added to that list the media to let everyone know your status and whether you're doing in business, out of business for a temporary period of time, or what. Ensure that all the email addresses and phone numbers are current. Have someone assign that responsibility to make sure that if things changed, that the system is updated and that you would be at any time able to send a text message to all employees on their cell phone, um, alerting them of some kind of an emergency or a disaster. So assign responsibility for initiating the communication effort. It shouldn't be a guessing game when something like this happens. You need one person that knows, I am supposed to communicate, and here's the way I'm going to do it. It shouldn't be someone saying, well, are you going to do it? Well, I thought so-and-so was doing it. It should never be that. It needs to be a clear responsibility for one person and a backup. And then advise employees of the process you're going to use to deliver information so they would notice it if it came to them. Cell phones are great, email is great. Most people do have smartphones now for text messages, so there may be people that you don't have that on, but a home phone number would also work. And then after you put all that together, you need to test it and let the employees and the vendors know that you're testing, that this is a test of our disaster recovery plan communication program so that you know that it actually works. And then test your entire plan. You need to test it annually when key staff changes are made. If those people who have key roles in the disaster plan um, leave, then you need to reassign them, um, reassign that responsibility to another person. And when you make changes to the plan, because nothing should be stagnant. Everything changes as we go along, and you need to review it annually to make sure that you don't need to make any changes to it. Maybe your facility has changed or your procedures have changed. So the way you do business has changed. That needs to be reflected in your disaster plan on an annual basis. And then you need to train your staff. If you don't train your staff, you're wasting your time because they won't remember what to do. They won't know how to do it. And so a lot of time would be wasted. But train your staff when they're hired. Do it during the onboarding process. Maybe not in the first 3 or 4 days that the person is on board because you throw so much at them when they first are hired, they don't remember 50% of it. So maybe when the person's been there 30 days, you do that. Train your staff annually. Always do an annual update. And train your staff whenever the plan is updated. Train them on the changes that you have made. And you know as well as I do, it is always something. First, we have COVID-19. Our economy is flailing. We have civil unrests and protests in the streets. With the natural disaster, the next thing on our list, I'm sure the people that are on the coast, on the east and southern coast, are worried about that. I'm sure the people in California that are impacted by COVID-19 are thinking about the wildfires and how that impacts them. So, for all of this, be prepared. I think a lot of us were not prepared for COVID-19. Back, I think it was in 2006 or 2008 when the avian flu was a threat. Um, I taught a class on preparing for that pandemic, and it never happened. But this one snuck up on us. And so next time something like this happens, and COVID would fit into this, be prepared, have a plan in place, and make sure that you're ready for this. I will tell you one thing, that when I was putting this PowerPoint together, I got kind of depressed because I was looking at pictures of hurricanes and fires and tornadoes. And so I started to put a happy picture here at the end, but I'm not sure that I could find one last night. So anyway, we need to be prepared. And I know that those who are on this call today will be prepared, more prepared than somebody who did not attend. So if you have any questions and you want to type them in the chat area, I can answer those for you. Does anybody have any questions? If you think of one after this is over, just go ahead and email me. I think most of you have my email address, but you can reach me at cgram@payentry.com, Or remember, we do have an HR services division that can do project work for you or be your virtual HR person. Um, but ask me questions. That's part of the service that Pantry gives you as a client, and I love talking to clients. It's the most favorite part of my job. So um, shoot me an email or call me anytime. Thanks for coming today, and have a disaster-free afternoon.